I am Zeus. I am the king of the gods of the Greeks, the greatest one of all. We live on the great mountain Olympus. I am going to regale you with the history of the Greeks, those lowly people. I'll tell you of the rise of their so-called great civilization.
Its mountainous geography, the early Greeks were rather isolated, leading to the development of the city-states. The first Greek civilization was that of the Minoans on the Isle of Crete. They built what was considered a great civilization. They had many artists who made colorful artwork. The Minoans worshipped a bull and an earth goddess, the fools. They had the wrong religion. Many of them were sailors and traders. Since they did not worship us, Poseidon and I orchestrated a volcano and subsequent tidal waves, which severely weakened the Minoans. Mycenaeans then took over. Once again, the people were not respectful enough, so Poseidon and I sent an earthquake and war to destroy them.
In the 700s and 800s BC, the Greeks formed their city-states. They began to form their culture. Soon they were telling stories and worshiping us as their gods. Now their stories aren't believed, and they are stories traditionally told. Some of the Greeks are oracles. We spoke through these priests and priestesses. People traveled from afar to hear them.
The Greeks tried very hard to please us. One thing they did was have the Olympic Games. They held the Games in honor of me. I thoroughly enjoyed watching the athletic contests. They also had literary events. As I ruled the gods, the Greeks began to have main rulers as well. The wealthy landowners were the rulers. Cities ruled by them were known as aristocracies. These nobles absolutely controlled society. We gods listened only to them. We only listened to the very best. The poor people eventually rebelled against the aristocrats, and leaders called tyrants took over the cities. The crazy people thought they could rule themselves, and so some city-states developed democracy. The common citizens helped rule. Others, like Sparta, kept their aristocracies, although citizens still had little say.
In the anthem and political rights. The men elected archons as the rulers who served one-year terms. The laws were written down by an archon named Jacko. His laws were very harsh, my kind of laws. As times passed, the gap between rich and poor widened. Solon was an archon who managed feuds between the creditors and the debtors. The foolish men even freed them as slaves. Within 50 years, Athens had Pistrinus as their tyrant leader with complete control. He may have split with nobles wealth up among farmers. I think that's a bad idea. He helped the economy, but after his death, the nobles rightfully retook their power.
507 BC, Cleisthenes seized power and turned it into a democracy. The ridiculous man turned the government into a direct democracy. All of the males were directly involved in government. Later, many places have representative democracy, which is a little better.
Right around the time of Pisistratus and Cleisthenes, I watched the king of Persia, Cyrus, conquer the Greek people who were in Asia Minor. Cyrus never did show me the proper respect. I stirred up the Greeks against them, and after 45 years, the people finally rebelled against the Persians in the Ionian Revolution. Thus began the Persian Wars. Persian leader Darius easily crushed the first rebellions in Asia Minor. I decided to teach the Greeks a little lesson about delaying. The Athenians cared for their brethren and helped the rebels, and so Darius decided to punish them. He was also too greedy and wanted to control the mainland. By 490 BC, the Persians invaded it. I directed the Athenians and Plataeans to the plain of Marathon. Their much smaller numbers faced off with the thousands upon thousands of Persians. After 5 days, I encouraged the Greeks to attack. They routed the Persians with their heavier arms. The Persians then retreated and left my Greeks alone. After 10 years, Darius' hot-headed son Xerxes came back for another attack. Many of my people united against them. The Spartans, led by my son Ares, stood up to them at the pass of Thermopylae. The 300 Spartans and other Greeks blocked the pass against the 100,000 Persians. After much damage had been done to those awful Persians, a traitor Greek led the Persians to another pass, allowing them to surround the Greeks. Leonidas, king of Sparta, and his men refused to surrender and bravely fought to the death. This boosted the morale of the Greeks.
The Persians then raised a path across Greece towards Athens. The leader, Themistocles, evacuated the people. Then, with the help of Dolus, he led the Persians into the narrow strait of Salamis. The Greeks crushed the Persian fleet Within a year, the Athens and the Spartans had defeated the nasty Persians and sent them limping back home.
Their land and Athens in particular built an empire. They had a peak of power during the time of Pericles. He was a great leader who extended Athens the rule of Athens. Unfortunately, some of the lesser gods stirred up a disconnect among the Athens and the Spartans, and finally, in 431 BC, the Peloponnesian War broke out. Soon the Spartans laid siege to Athens. Since Athens had a better navy, they were able to hold out against the siege for years. All throughout the war, Athens was weakened by internal power struggles, paving the way for a stronger Spartan army, which helped the Persians, to eventually force Athens to surrender in 404 BC. If you wonder why we let the war drag on for so long, you must know that we decided that democracy was getting too strong in Athens. We wanted Sparta to win. Also, all the battles and bloodshed was marvelous to watch.
After the war, Greece was still very divided, but they began their golden age. Apollo, Athena, Hephaestus, and the Muses were very busy during this time, assisting the Greeks in their burst of creativity. A lot of art and literature and philosophy was made at this time. They built the magnificent Temple of Olympia to me. It was one of the 7 worlds at the time, and there was a huge 40-foot statue of me there.
Again, Ade stirred up the people, and they fought among themselves. The Persians worked against the Greeks. The fractured states were unable to stand against Philip II of Macedonia, who came in and attacked northern Greece before heading south. He formed a great army and used it in his campaigns. He was an admirer of the Greeks, but did not fully look up to me. I allowed him to conquer, though, because I decided the Greeks needed to be humbled a bit. I think some people saw Philip as a hero and others as a threat. Demosthenes was an orator who despised Philip. He tried to unite the Greeks against Philip. Then the resisting Greeks lost the Battle of Chaeronea, and Philip took over. He got too proud, though, and so he had him assassinated in 336 BC. His son Alexander succeeded him.
Strong and brave, and much admired by the goddesses. He was too greedy, in my opinion, though. He wanted to rule the world, but he forgot that role belongs to me, that fool. He also wanted to spread Hellenism. This is a type of Greek culture. Why he wanted to change Greek culture is beyond me. Alexander crushed many rebellions and conquered much of the known world. We decided he was getting too cocky, so we stirred up a discontent among the soldiers, and Alexander was forced to turn back from India. Then he headed to Babylon. There, at the age of 32, he died. He almost never lost a battle, in part Ares liked him.
After Alexander died, his empire was split among his 3 generals. We made war common among them, leading to the Romans being able. What? Oh, I must go. My wife, Hera, is calling me. If you want to finish the history, read the histories by the Herodotus, the so-called father of history. Hera, just a minute, I'm coming.